Good morning. We've made it to Friday, and good to see you on another edition of our Weather Academy. I'm meteorologist Tom DeVecchio with my cohort meteorologist Craig Flint. And Craig, we are going out of this world.
We are. So meteorology, there's kind of some crossover into space. Now this is a discipline in and of itself, but we can kind of draw some similarities because space has its own weather. The thing is it's much more extreme compared to what we deal with here on Earth. And we could talk about why that is a little bit. We're in the planet Earth is in what we call the Goldilocks zone. So if you're familiar with the Goldilocks and how many bears?
Three. There were three. Yep, three bears. Yeah.
You know, where the porridge is just right. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's just right. That's how it is with Earth. We're just right. We're just far away from the sun to not be too cold, and not close enough to the sun to burn
to a crisp. Yeah, but we're not. Yeah, we're far enough out, and our atmosphere is just right, to allow for to allow life to form. You know, of all the planets, not only in the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe, only a very, very tiny fraction can actually support life with the kind of atmosphere that we have. Life, at least as we know it.
As we know it, right. And I think if you wanted to narrow that down even more, Earth is the only planet that can have
it
like what we
That's
have,
right, with the humanity of life.
There are some studies going on other planets that are being looked into, and whether or not that those planets can support life. But the bottom line here is we're just right. We got it pretty good, and it's a long shot. It's a long shot to say that we could possibly sustain ourselves.
Okay. We apparently are having some problems with Craig's mic, and we're going to switch out mics here, and we're going to see if we can get his microphone to work. So I'll be chatting while Craig does the thing here. And what you see on there right now, the solar system consists of 8 planets. We have the inner planets, the first 4 there, of which Earth is a part of. Then we have a little area there, that little brown hook there, that little brown loop is that's what we call the asteroid belt. And then we have as you can see, the much larger outer planets, which we are going to save for another day.
All right.
Hey, do we have Craig's mic here?
Hopefully you can hear me now.
Can you hear him?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Mic check, mic check.
How's that sound?
Is that better?
We're good.
Okay.
Always good, and we can continue on with, with our own life.
There we go. All right, so yeah, that's the solar system kind of in a nutshell. That's what it looks like. And notice the big yellow star, that's the sun, and the sun is the big kahuna. We all revolve around the sun. And the asteroid belt you mentioned, and then there's the outer belt. Now, I'm not quite sure on the pronunciation of it. I've heard it a couple different ways. The Cooper or Kepler belt, something like that?
I believe it's the Kepler.
Kepler?
I believe Kepler.
Yeah, that's way out there, and we're going to discuss that later on, too. But what we wanted to do is hone in and talk about the first 4 planets that make up our solar system. So first off, let's define what is a planet.
And what is a planet? Well, as Craig made up here, it needs to be round. I don't know too many square planets for the most part there. And it must orbit a sun, in this case, our sun. Now, as I mentioned, we have 8 total planets. Pluto got knocked off in 2006 because it didn't fit the, just like we have an organization, there's organizations for everything, and there is a world organization that defines, experts who define what a planet is. And Pluto is basically an asteroid and not a planet.
Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit on Monday. It's a dwarf planet. Basically, they're just picking on the little guy, if you ask me.
Not fair.
Comprised of 4 inner planets, which we just discussed, and those planets are made of rock. Once you get into the 4 outer planets, that's when you're talking about much larger planets, and you may have seen the size comparison there on our last slide, and they're all made of gas. And again, the the sunner. The sun is the center of the solar system. And let me just back up real quick and just give you another shot of that picture. You can see just how much bigger those 4 outer planets are. But today, for our purposes, we're going to discuss the 4 inner planets as mentioned. We've already defined what the solar system is. So let's go into Mercury.
Yes, Mercury is our smallest planet. Now that Pluto's been knocked out. It is what we call the swift planet because, as the name implies, it revolves very quickly around the sun. Now it is 26 million miles from the sun. It has a very, very thin atmosphere. So no rings, there's no moons around Mercury. And it is, as mentioned, the smallest planet in our solar system. Now, we talked about the atmosphere a bit. And one of the things that the atmosphere is a very good regulator of heat, just like water and air. With the very thin atmosphere, the temperature range of Mercury goes widely from 290
minus 290.
Minus
That's at
290
night.
during the nighttime hours to 800 degrees when the sun is out. Yes, those are true numbers. So you have almost an 1,100 degree difference. Could you imagine going to bed at night with enough covers on you, probably about 15 or 16 blankets, and then getting up the next morning and basically burning
Right.
because of the wide range of temperatures?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we'll never be able to live on Mercury. And kind of put that in perspective for you. So 800 degrees Fahrenheit, that's when a lot of your metallic materials, steel, lead, melts.
Yes.
Just done, incinerates. So that's Mercury. Next up in the lineup is Venus. And this one you can see a lot of the times, and that's why we call it the evening or morning star. So you'll see Venus in the evening, and then also again early in the morning if the sky is clear, usually a little brighter and compared to the other celestial objects around it. So Venus is one of the visible planets, probably the most visible planets regularly in our sky. This one, 67 million miles from the sun. Now, I know these seem like big numbers, and they are, but, you know, it's just kind of a stone's throw.
In spatial, in space it is. It is literally taking a step compared to going across the Earth. I mean, just an incredibly small amount.
Right. Now, the atmosphere of Venus is very toxic. So it's carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and sulfuric acid.
That'll burn your lungs.
Yeah. That makes it the hottest planet, which is kind of weird to think about. It's like, well, Mercury is the closest to the sun, but like Tom was saying with the atmosphere, how it regulates kind of the heating of the planet, with a toxic atmosphere, and especially sulfuric acid and carbon dioxide, that makes it the hottest planet. Average temperature across the board is 864 degrees Fahrenheit. No rings, no moons. And the interesting thing about Venus is it spins opposite of the other planets. So that's the evening or morning star of Venus. So look up in the sky, and there's a good chance you'll see
usually it's a yellow color, oftentimes. And in fact, it was just near the moon last week. We saw Venus, actually saw Jupiter and Mars as well, all within close of each other.
Yeah, and sometimes you know they line up just right where you can see multiple planets, and they have resources online, like sky charts online for the month, that will tell you what planets are what in the sky and what you're looking at when you go out and look
on
up.
any given day, for the most part. It's a very useful, and even though I'm not an astronomer, I like to use it myself.
Sure, absolutely.
Number 3 is our own home planet.
Yeah, where you and me live.
Yeah, good old Earth, often called the blue marble. Third rock from the sun, which is also a great TV show, by the way.
And a great country music song by the late Joe Diffie.
Oh,
if you're a country music fan.
There you go.
Welcome to Earth, Third Rock from the Sun.
I have learned something.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, the Earth averages 93 million miles away, and we have an atmosphere. If if Venus, Venus is probably the ultimate greenhouse gas because carbon dioxide is their main gas. The main gas for us is nitrogen. We're 21% oxygen and 1% all of the other gases there. And, as we said, we are in the sweet spot. Our atmosphere is thick enough and we are far enough away from the sun where, again, we don't get burned to 864, we can't survive,
Right.
But the atmosphere regulates our temperatures enough. The average temperature of the Earth is about 59 degrees Fahrenheit when you average the tropics up toward the poles. And that's good enough to sustain life. Of course, we have no rings. We do have one moon, and we are almost 3/4 water. Which is also very important, not only from a meteorological standpoint, but it is also, water, like the sun, is what's needed for life, for our life as we know it,
Right.
okay, to sustain itself.
Yep. And there has been some evidence that there might be some water on other planets. So that's why these studies continue. The thing about the solar system and space, when we talk about galaxy versus universe, those are totally different things.
Yes.
Okay. The galaxy, well, I should say the universe is infinite. Like it's, it's so big that there are just so many things that we don't know. Our galaxy is what we really hone in on when we talk about space and space weather. Now, we mentioned weather on these planets. They do kind of create their own weather, but again, it's much, much more extreme compared to what we deal with here on Earth. So that's why we're in that Goldilocks zone. And think about this. When you go outside today, or any day, and you take that deep breath, you are breathing in all of that nitrogen and oxygen. Isn't that cool? That's really neat.
Exactly. And it's what allows us to live.
All right, so like I said, we're going to discuss the first four, and this one will be the last one and probably one of the most popular ones.
Absolutely.
The old red planet.
I mean, who'd have thunk?
Yeah.
I don't know of any planet that we've had more science fiction movies about.
Right.
One that's more mysterious and one that's really very close, to Earth in a lot of ways, for the most part. It's Mars. Mars is the red planet. When you look in the nighttime sky, it tends to have a reddish hue to it. It's 142 million miles. And, like Venus and Earth, it does have an atmosphere. It has a nitrogen atmosphere, argon, which is what we call an inert gas, and it has carbon dioxide. So it does have an atmosphere. It's not as thick. But one thing that's really interesting is if you look at the profile of Mars' atmosphere from a temperature standpoint and compare it to Earth, it's almost identical.
Right.
It's almost identical. It gets colder with height, but the height of the atmosphere is about the same as Earth, and which makes scientists, at least think, if there's a planet that would be most closely associated with Earth, weather-wise, it would be Mars.
It would be Mars, and that's probably out of all the planets, if there ever were to be, which just personally I don't think will happen, but that's just my opinion. If there were ever to be another life-sustaining planet as we know it, that study is going on Mars, but that's a long, 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 long time away.
It really is. And let's face it. Mars is about, just doing the math here, is about 40 million miles away from Earth. So I know we talk about, trips to Mars, like you see in those sci-fi movies. We do not have the technology now.
Right.
You cannot make a spaceship big enough that would have enough fuel to get there for a bunch of people. Obviously, we can send rovers there. We can send unmanned space probes.
Technology,
but do we have the technology for maybe a group of 50 people? Not quite.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if it ever happens, I'm there. I want to go. I want to take my trip to Mars.
There you go.
I want to see if there's Martians and little green men and all that stuff and people with little lasers and just like we had in those old 1950s sci-fi movies.
Right.
War of the Worlds, one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. by the way. And Mars, you gotta love it.
It's a good candy bar, too.
Yes, they do. They make a great candy bar, absolutely. Now, one thing you might notice about the names of these, not only today, but also the names that we go through. You have what do 3 of the 4 inner planets have in common with their names? Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I believe they're all named after some sort of goddess.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, that was our trivia question today
Okay.
on Jet.
Yeah.
And yeah, Mercury, Venus, and Mars are all named after, either Roman or Greek gods. Earth is the only planet in the solar system not named after a Greek or a Roman god. Well done.
Who knew?
He did not know that was coming.
I did not. I did not. A couple other quick facts about Mars. This actually has 2 moons, Mars does, and they have their own names too. And it's half the size of planet Earth, okay? And if you might be wondering, well, why is it red? And you can kind of put that into perspective here on Earth. What that is rust.
Yeah.
It's rust. With the way the
oxide.
iron minerals and soil oxidization, if I said that right, equals rust. So that's why it looks that red kind of tinge hue to it, rusty. So some pretty other cool stats.
Right, just like we're blue because of the water,
Right.
and the the blue color that reflects off the water from the sun. Yeah, the color of the planet. Again, the sun reflecting off that iron oxide makes it red, just like the reflection off of Venus, because of the because the gas state of Venus allows yellow to be the primary color that escapes it, and that's why Venus is yellow. And as we'll learn on Monday, we can even see Jupiter,
Yeah.
which is also yellow.
Yeah, so we're going to leave it there for today, but come back Monday because we still have 4 more planets to go. And what about Pluto? We're going to talk about
We'll
Pluto.
talk it,
We're
okay?
not going to leave him out.
No,
we're
we
not
can't.
going to leave him
And
out.
Pluto, it's not just the name of a dog on the Disney Channel.
Yeah.
It's an actual rock.
Yeah, so space out there, still a lot we don't know about it, still a lot of studies going into space. But the cool thing is that we can kind of draw some comparison to some of the weather patterns, albeit much, much more extreme.
There you go.
That's why we're here on Earth in the Goldilocks zone. So we wanted to just kind of talk about the planets. Someone had asked us about the solar system, which again is a discipline in and of itself.
Yeah, it's
we're
astronomy.
we're
Yeah.
meteorologists,
Yeah.
but there is some crossover there.
Sure.
Alrighty, you know what time it is.
Yep, it's that time to ask.
What inspires you? Maybe it's the planets and learning more about space. And who knows, maybe down the road, you could become an astronomer and learn all cool different things about planets. And maybe someday even be on the ground floor of some hot new research in some of the
Yeah.
other planets, because that's something that is constantly being studied. So always remember what is inspiring you. It can be the planets, it could be the weather, it could be anything. And don't forget, we want to hear from you as well. Weather at WJET-TV.com.
Yes, give us your questions. Well, thank you so much for joining us as we went out of this world,
Right.
having ourselves a great time. We appreciate that. So enjoy the rest of your weekend for the Weather Academy, and we will see you Monday.
Yeah, coming up on Monday, we go even farther out into space and we'll discuss the other 4 planets. We'll talk to you then.
Take care.